Well, welcome to the Clean Profits podcast, Jim.
Well, thanks. It's good to be here.
So excited to have you on today. Let's just start off by you telling us a little bit about your position here at Zerorez and how you found yourself an owner of a Zerorez franchise.
Well, my position at Zerorez, I bought the franchise in 2006 in Minneapolis from a gentleman who had started it about a year prior. He lived in Dallas, and so he was having a difficult time with the distance and so forth. I was in real estate at the time. I sold real estate for about 25 years, started a RE/MAX, and then we layered on title and mortgage and development, which ultimately took me down in 2008. But I had bought Zerorez in 2006 and brought on a couple of partners and ended up with just one partner. We bought the other ones out shortly thereafter, just a difference in how it is we thought the company could run or what we could do with the company. I had bought it as what I considered to be a passive investment because I was running hard with real estate with those 5 divisions and my partners. Yeah. And then in 2008, lost everything, filed bankruptcy. Fortunately, was able to keep Zerorez because it was losing money. So the bankruptcy judge had no interest in taking over a piece of a dumpster fire like that. So we were able to keep it. And then in 2008, I thought, well, I guess I'm starting over. And so I went full-time Zerorez, got on the truck, and started cleaning homes and learning about the industry. I very quickly thought, well, we need to scale this thing. This is the Twin Cities, 3.5 million people. And I really don't have any interest in cleaning beyond the fact that I need to learn what our guys are doing in the field, how we're presenting ourselves to the customer, how we're serving the customer. Because in real estate, everything is about service and really providing an experience that people will remember. And so they will refer you other business, and that's how you build a business.
Yeah.
I saw the carpet cleaning industry as a bit of a skeezy industry with a lot of characters, a lot of mom and pops, kind of an underserved industry to a large degree, and thought if we could really bring an experience to the customer rather than a transaction to the customer, we could hopefully build on referrals and build on a reputation and develop a nice niche is what I initially thought, a nice niche.
Yeah.
Because of course, at the time, we were driving big box trucks around. They weighed 25,000 pounds. We were carrying around 420 gallons of water. They were uninsulated, which didn't work well in Minnesota.
Oh my goodness. I can't imagine.
It was below about 10 degrees, which is a lot, by the way, in the wintertime. Yeah. We couldn't run because the water lines would freeze, and I'd have the wand and the stair tool and the lead line in the cab of the truck so that it wouldn't freeze, so I could get to the next job. It wasn't very good. The early days of the franchise were a little bit tough.
But I love hearing the evolution.
Yeah.
I mean, technology does wonders.
Well, we had what later became a good friend, Steve Polis, will stumble into the office. He was doing an IICRC class at the local Interlink, and he said, why are you driving those box trucks around? I said, I don't want to drive those box trucks around. We're freezing in the wintertime. We're burning way too much gas. We need DOT certification to drive them. And he said, well, have you ever thought of driving a van? If you know Steve, he's a character. So I said, I'd love to drive a van, but we got to carry 420 gallons of water. And he said, well, why are you carrying that much water? I said, because we're cleaning at 600 PSI. Well, why are you cleaning at 600 PSI? I don't know. That's what we're doing, So anyway, we designed, his engineers at Hydromaster designed the first van, and that was in the fall of 2008. It was delivered in 2009, and that really opened the floodgates for our ability to grow, to scale this company. So at that time, I thought, well, in real estate, the way I scaled RE/MAX, we were ultimately at about 85 agents, is I visited a number of different RE/MAX franchises and got their story. How did you build this company? How did you scale this company? And so I thought, I really need to learn this industry. So we went to Ohio to see Chuck Violand. He's a consultant to the industry, to kind of fill in a lot of the gaps about the line items of the P&L and where those expenses should be and how to run a profitable company. Not that they were anywhere near running a profitable company. I at least thought it'd be good to understand how it's going to work eventually.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so I did that. Then I started asking Steve Polis again and other people who had been in the industry a long time. I said, who are some of the really good companies out there that maybe I could get a meeting with, go visit, and learn from them on how they run their company? And by doing that, I went to, and this was with my partner at the time, Michael. We went to Modernistic in Detroit, became good friends, actually, just went on a bike ride with Bob McDonald. He ran about a $7 or $8 billion company, an independent in Detroit, the suburbs of Detroit. I spent time in his lake home. We're good friends. We then went to Dirt Free in Houston. We went to Howard Partridge in Houston. We went to That's Clean as a Whistle, and he's a consultant. And we joined this round table, and it's mainly mom and pop, so we didn't get a great deal from that, but it's good. It was good exposure. Went to Stanley Steamer in San Diego. Went to just a number of companies to learn, how do you scale these things? How do you run your company? How do you treat your employees? What's your philosophy on how you're going to deliver the service? Do you have core values of the company? And so by doing that, we were able to get a good, rounded kind of idea of how it is we could potentially scale this thing if we could figure out how to drive jobs. And of course, at that time, we didn't have a robust marketing department. I talked to the marketing guy in 2006. Well, you got to knock on doors. That's not how I intend to scale this company, and
not efficient.
So we kind of walked out with our tail between our legs. And ultimately, we learned how to do radio. The franchise had introduced us to a radio buyer. And first to break, 60 seconds, kind of a reach and teach philosophy. And so we started radio. And of course, radio isn't supposed to work in our industry because it's a visual kind of a service. But it worked for us, and it worked very, very well. And so we went on a growth tear. We bought the company in 2006, as I said, and the company did $360,000 in that year. The next year we did about 710. And then the next year was 2008, we did 1.5. But then when we figured out the vans and began figuring out radio, in 2009, we went from 1.5 to 2.5. Wow. So we added 4 trucks in 1 year.
Wow.
The next year, we went from 2.5 to 5 million. So we added $2.5 million. So that's 9 vans. We added 9 vans in 1 year.
1 year. That's incredible.
And of course, having just filed bankruptcy, the financing was a miserable challenge. So I put together a request for proposal and sent it out to a bunch of banks and got a few that would talk to me and got one that partnered with us. And they were a very good partner for a number of years, because in 2010, when we had done 5 million, that's more volume than anyone had ever done in the Twin Cities in our industry. But because of the way we were growing, I took Michael out to lunch. I said, Michael, I think we ought to double down, and I think we ought to beef up our marketing budget, and I think we ought to see what the Twin Cities will give us, because I think we can grow from here. And he, I don't think he slept that night very well, but we did exactly that, and we went from 5 million to 8 million the next year.
Jim.
So $8 million. Now that's 12 vans that we bought.
Yeah.
I remember our production manager saying, okay, Jim, so you want to buy 12 vans. That means I got to hire 20 techs plus the number of technicians that we lose. I said, yep. And so it was just chaos. It was organized chaos.
But how exciting.
It was the wings were flying off the plane as we were in the air.
Yeah.
But we held it together. We went from 8 million in 2011. The next year we went to 10 million. The next year we went to 11 million. Then we went to 12 million. And then in 2015, we kind of flattened out at about 13 million. So when we look at then we look at market share and we look at per capita in the marketplace. So that's nearly $4 per capita, which is a very, very strong number. So to get additional growth, we're probably going to need to layer on incremental services. And so we were doing ducts at the time, but we weren't doing a great job with duct cleaning. We were using the truck mount, and it's really a very ineffective way to clean ducts. Negative air is the proper way to do it, and really to create that turbulence in each one of the ducts and to pull it down and then to pull it out of the system and clean the entire system. So we began researching how do we clean ducts effectively. And so we bought the negative air equipment and then really began building on our duct department and grew that to about 20% of our total sales. Okay, so then we felt like, okay, the Twin Cities maybe has minimal growth. We had a technician who wanted to open Omaha. He was from Nebraska and he was ready to go, and he had gone down there and he had identified the territory and arranged for everything, and all of his financing was with family members, and it all fell apart. So he calls me one day, hey Jim, you want to own Omaha? I said no, but no. So we bought Omaha, and so that was our first experience in another market. We partnered with John Truex, who still does own Des Moines, because that was kind of his natural growth area.
Sure.
We knew John very well because he was from the Twin Cities. We actually trained John in the early days of the franchise when our training department was struggling, and he lived in the Twin Cities, so it was a natural kind of for us to help. And so I called John. I said, we are going to do Omaha. I really would. You're welcome to take it if you'd like to. That's your natural expansion area. It's only an hour and a half from Des Moines. Or we can do it together. If you want nothing to do with it, that's okay. We're going to do it then without you. And he said, I'd love to be a part of that. So we were partners for a number of years. I sold my interest to him a few years ago to open up opportunities for Doug, his operations guy at the time, who's now his partner. And so that was our first kind of offsite experience. And then we opened some others. We opened Pittsburgh in 2014. We opened St. Louis in 2015. We purchased Charlotte and Savannah. So we were on a bit of a growth run, and it was providing a lot of opportunity for people in our organization, which I loved. One of our core values at that time was growth for good. We've now adopted the corporate core values in the name of consistency. But back to the chaos. So that's about when we started Traction, which is an entrepreneurial operating system. And Traction really helped us. That was in about 2011. Helped us begin to organize kind of how it is we're going to run this business, and really provide an organized structure where we can provide growth for our team members, and put everything into a little more of a organized fashion, which we really needed to do as we were developing these offsite opportunities in other major metro cities. And so that was a big piece of our growth: the vans, the Traction. And of course, in the early days, we were scheduling on Camelot, which was a static website. And so it was like using your day timer, to schedule John. And then we'd all have our copies of papers. They were called our jobs. So I'd go out with 4 jobs and a map book trying to figure out where I'm going with this thing. And so to scale that, the technology was so helpful in our ability to scale. And then you have a cancellation, or you're running behind, you're calling in, and then I got to pull over on the side of the road to dispatch. They tell me, hey, Jim, you got a different job now. Okay, what's their name and what's their phone number and what's the scope of work? And, and it was just a very, very different world. So technology is what really enabled us to scale, and the franchise. As the franchise began to grow, they were layering layering in more and more tools that would really assist in your ability to grow your business and to give you the direction you needed. And also at that time, we really worked hard to develop a network among the franchisees and develop friendships and develop trust. We're not in the same market, so we don't compete against each other.
Yeah.
So we began opening up our P&Ls and speaking at conferences and talking about the line items on the P&L and where we think that our costs could be. And then we'd get together frequently, at least twice a year with Atlanta, became very, very close friends of mine with Phoenix, some other bases. And we would get together and just share what's working, what isn't working, and why are you doing so well with that? Okay, come to Phoenix or come to Minneapolis and let's work through it. Let's share ideas.
Yeah.
And kind of model what we're doing.
I would imagine that all of that information you guys are passing back and forth made its way back to corporate, and now they're tools that we use and methodologies.
Absolutely.
And
yeah, many of our SOPs, many of Atlanta's SOPs, many of Phoenix SOPs, we were very quick to share them with corporate. And then they've taken many chapters, many evolutions, levels of evolution since then, and have become, I'm sure, much better than kind of the early ones. But the early ones at least gave a start.
Yeah.
And I remember in 2009, I invited all the franchises to come to Minneapolis, and it happened to be February, because we thought we'd figured out how to be profitable, and that was something everyone was interested in. I think we had virtually every franchise in the system come to Minneapolis. There was about 20 below that week that they came, and it was miserable.
You're not making me want to visit you. That's all.
Yeah. I guess I might have come, but it was a really, really productive time together, and I think really it was in many ways the beginning of really a shared experience of how it is that we can work together to try and bring this thing forward, and then ultimately the franchise layer in all the talent that they have to be able to put those pieces in place. But we remain very close today with many of them, and we continue to share ideas and continue. And then that became necessary as we were developing offsite locations. It's very different when you don't have ownership in the offsite location.
Yeah.
So we had some very bad experiences with that, but fortunately we were able to survive them.
Yep. You live and you learn. And that's what I love about our franchise is it's built off of experience and trial and error. And it's not, corporate bigwigs coming in and telling us this is how we've done it at other companies. You should do it this way. It's really a trial and error situation.
It is. And the foundation of it is really providing an experience and not a transaction. Yeah. That is how we built our company. I remember calling customers, how did we do? And of course, you can only call a handful. You can only get a hold of a handful. Back then, they were landlines, and then Listen 360 came in, where we could survey the customers and hear directly from them, get it real time, a day later, and hear from them. And then the scores started coming in, and the scores were just, wow, we're really are providing an experience to these customers. It's not a transaction. They really love our product. They love our water. They love the fact that we're not leaving all that garbage in your home, the residue, the phosphates, the chemicals, and they love our people. And I thought we could scale this. And then that's when we really went after it with radio. And that was about 2007 or 2008 when Listen 360 came into the system. It was actually Atlanta that found it. And then we took it throughout the system immediately because it was such a valuable tool.
So tell me, let's go back a little bit to when you were still in real estate and you had bought this Zerorez and it wasn't doing well. What enticed you to get into the brand in the first place, as it was a newly budding franchise?
Yeah, well, back when we started, we were on radio one day a week. It was on Fridays. We bought one ad. Couldn't figure out why that didn't work. And so we had inherited that one time a week exposure from the prior owner. So the prior owner had run an ad that talked about the water and talked about the power of it, the right way to clean, and the residue issue, the residue problem solved. And I was driving from an appointment in real estate. I remember where I was on the road. I was on Interstate 90. And so anyway, I thought, wow, if that, because I did a lot of carpet cleaning work being in real estate. You know, you buy a house, you want to start clean, you sell a house, it better be clean.
Mhm.
So, in working with these different carpet cleaning vendors, I just was never really felt great about the experience they were providing or the consistency or lack thereof.
Yeah.
And I thought, man, if we could bring a really, really consistent product, provide the experience that we do in title and mortgage and in real estate, and really have a company of integrity, maybe we can have a really cool business. And so I decided I was going to do it. I'd gone hunting with a guy from Stanley Steamer, so I figured, well, I'll just hire him to run it. So I called him, and that was initially one of my partners that we bought out later. And so then he said, well, I got a couple more guys that might want to be partners. And one turned out to be my long-term partner, Michael, and the other one was Ryan's brother, Sean. And so the four of us took off. And so it was really the water, the ability to create what we really thought would be a niche business. Because with these box trucks, we had to have a very, very high job average because of the cost of running these things was just, it was double what we're running with vans. And so we didn't envision that we could scale it because we could not have, with that model, competing against the industry.
Yeah.
It's a very different model. But it was really the water and our vision of being able to create an experience for customers and really create something that might be unique to the industry and maybe niche and special to the industry. That's what's really our goal going in.
The technology setting it apart. So going, back to all the partners that you brought on, and you've had, remote partners go to other satellite locations. You as an entrepreneur and the entrepreneurs that you partnered with, what makes a good franchisee versus, the partners that you broke ties with, or maybe franchisees that you've seen come through the system that had success? What sets the successful ones apart from the non-successful ones?
I think one of those initial four, his wife was a medical doctor, pediatrician, I believe, and he had been kind of Mr. Mom in his role. And coming into Zerorez, he was very, very bright and academically strong, and I think he had a desire to be a part of something. It's just that when we took off, he had no comprehension of what that commitment would require in order to not get run over with the growth we were experiencing. And so he just wasn't going to be able to manage what the requirements were at that time.
Yeah.
And so we were running 7 days a week, because rather than buying trucks, every 10 minutes, we said, well, let's utilize this fleet. Let's run 7 days. We can reduce our fleet by 15% if we do that, of what it otherwise would be. So by not having those vans sitting in the barn on Sundays. So we ran 7 days a week for years. And then it became a kind of a toll on the workforce. It's a grind. It's a grind 7 days. It's a grind 6 days a week, but it's a real grind 7 days a week. But I think grit, work ethic, we just were on a mission. And especially having filed bankruptcy, I was really on a mission because I was starting over. We were building a 52-unit condo building and when we lost everything, I lost millions on paper. And so I was really, really motivated, just getting back after it and trying to create or recreate something. And so I think we had a very clear vision, and I think that's really, really important. We had team is family. One of our core values: work hard, have fun, deliver wow every customer, every time, live deliberately, and growth for good. And I think the growth for good was we kind of added that one as we were layering in these offsite locations because it provided a lot of opportunity for a lot of folks. And growth for good it was also personal growth. We were reading a lot of books as a leadership group, and we were reading books as technicians, even those who had an interest in personal growth or maybe moving into another position within our company. And so we would be just shoving books at people nonstop. So I think the culture was incredibly important to us. We had very low turnover by industry standards. We had people that have been with me for 13, 14 years. And so we really had a very, very healthy culture. And then, of course, if you have a family of coworkers who are happy with their job, they're much more likely to go out and do a great job in the field and create that experience that we were so wanting to provide as a company. So I think those were valuable pieces for us.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Do you feel like, well, I mean, it's not a feeling, it either happened or it didn't, but at corporate now we have this book that we read together as a corporate team, and we go through a chapter every week. Was that your influence, or was that here at corporate?
I don't think I influenced Sean Moon, the guy who writes books. I read his books. I don't write. I don't know. It was really valuable to me early on. I started with was just the 5 levels of leadership, for instance, and going through the basic pieces of: first, you're given a title, and then you have to get permission, and then you better hit your goals, and you better achieve, and then you can become an influencer to others around you, and then you can ultimately become an influencer to those outside of your field. Those are kind of the basics of the 5 levels.
Mm-hmm.
Books like that, leadership-driven books, is what we had always promoted. We had a lot of interest in them, and one of the coolest things about my journey with this company is I never really thought about it having come from real estate, but we just were being exposed with predominantly high school graduates, or not even graduating high school, in our workforce. Carpet cleaning technicians, it just doesn't attract. Sometimes they might be very, very bright, but didn't have as many opportunities. Yeah. So to really have an opportunity to mentor or to be a part of their life and create something, or provide an environment where they can create something that can become really, really valuable and do something for their family. It's been one of the greatest enjoyments, or greatest pieces of my journey through this thing. And one of the biggest surprises, that was never something that I considered, because, well, of course, I never thought we'd have 150 of them, but, it really has become it has been a very, very enjoyable piece of the journey.
Yeah. Well, I think that personal growth aspect that you give to your technicians, the way it transfers in the home, it builds trust. You can tell when you meet someone, what their core values are, and where you have such a strong set of core values at your bases, that definitely trickles into the home.
It does. It does. When we provide the service right, we're doing those walkthroughs, and we're looking people in the eye, and we're picking up it used to be pick up their newspaper at the end of the driveway and bring it to them. Bring their trash can up to the door and do that walkthrough and look at them in the eye and give suggestions on what they might consider, let them know what you're going to do, bring them through, show them what you've done. That's how you build the trust.
Yeah.
When we see really low Listen 360 scores, I can guarantee you that they're not doing their walkthroughs, they're not building that trust, they're not providing that experience, and they need to make adjustments or have a career adjustment.
Yeah. Yep. They do. My first introduction to the brand was long before I worked here, and I was a single mom, and I had a technician come into my home, and that's a scary thing,
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
four tiny little kids, and I've got somebody I don't know coming into my home, and I just remember how safe I felt, and um, how he could have told me I needed every couch and every chair in my home cleaned, and I would have said yes, please. My
Or customers like you.
So, and then when I had this opportunity, it took me back to that first experience, which, Zerorez has been in my home every 9 months for the last 15 years. But
Right.
it's what got me. And so I think that's a really important part, not just for the technicians themselves, but for the Zerorez clients as well. Okay, lastly, let's wrap this thing up. I just want to know from you, you're a huge leader in our organization, and so many people look up to you. How would you define the word leadership?
Well, leadership is knowing who you are and having clear core values on what it is you're hoping to do within your organization, having a clear vision of how it is that you believe that you can get there, and then bringing a team that can execute. In the early days, if it's to be, it's up to me. And so you start running in a million different directions, and pretty soon you get diluted to the point where you really are not executing well at all. And it becomes kind of a mediocre firefight every single day. But having a competent team that you can set the vision for, you can have a system where there's accountability, you can have KPIs, you can have scorecards, you can have check-ins, you can have same-page meetings, and then just let them do their job with that accountability. That is going to be able to provide an environment where you're going to be set up for success. I think that also will give you a great chance, if you have integrity in the organization, where you're going to have a culture that really fosters that, fosters trust, fosters a work ethic, fosters working toward that common vision. And I think in our organization, each franchisee is responsible for that. The ones that struggle are the ones who don't have that, who maybe don't have someone on site, a boots on the ground, that has that vision, has the work ethic, has the grit, has the commitment. We have many, many really, really hardworking franchisees that are very, very skilled and have done such a great job. We have others that have struggled, and I think that maybe they've struggled because they've not been involved in their business to the degree that you probably need to. Running a business is not easy. It's not for everyone, and the rewards are also unlike most opportunities. It's the opportunity to develop wealth, the opportunity to do something really special, develop potentially generational wealth in some cases, if you have a great deal of success and if you have that desire. It's also a great opportunity for a mom and pop to have an extraordinary life and to make very, very good income. You can take this in many directions with many different levels, but I think the leadership piece of it is probably consistent with each of them. And it does require work ethic. It does require a trust, an environment, a culture, and a vision. And I think that our franchise does a good job of putting pieces in place that give people exposure and give people direction and give people the coaching that they need in order to create that environment in their space.
Yeah. Yeah. Well,
that's a very disjointed answer to your question.
No, but you got to where I wanted you to go with it. I love that.
We landed the plane?
Landed the plane. It's all in one piece. The wings did not come off.
Yeah, beautiful, beautiful.
But I absolutely loved your gritty comeback story. I had no idea what you had been through, and to hear that the only way to go was up when that after that first year of Zerorez, when real estate sort of came to a screeching halt for you, like this, that's an incredible story. It's not the story of having, a couple $1 million to invest somewhere and it working out for you. I love hearing that grind. So thank you for
Well,
sharing.
it's been a fun journey. It's been terrific. So I appreciate being able to share it on your platform.
Of course. And I'm excited to introduce new franchisees to you at our upcoming owners conference.
I'll be there.
Yep. We'll see you in Nashville, Jim.
Okay, thanks.